so my name's Emma. The original photograph was taken in the half term of 2012, so the start of June. And Claire and I had been together for about 3 weeks, and we came here because we're both teachers. We came here in half term, and we brought a colleague here who was Canadian and known from Stratford before, and was very excited to come here. And we were having coffee outside the theatre, and our friend took a photo of us, and Claire must have just said something funny or cheeky, I imagine, because I'm kind of sort of grinning a bit in the photo, and there's quite a few photos of us like that people have taken, and I suppose I chose that one because it was really early days, but I think she'd already said something in passing about when we get married, because, as I said to you earlier, she knew what she wanted in life, so I think you can tell from the photo that we kind of knew it wasn't casual. And I guess Stratford, it was nice because she also happened to meet my mum that day. I told my mum she was just a friend, but and actually my mum knew she wasn't a friend, and I knew my mum knew she wasn't a friend because my mum put the biscuits out on a plate instead of just giving them in a pack, which is what she would do for anyone else. But the fact that she did proper cups of tea and put the chocolate digestives on a plate, I was like, oh, Mum, you've rumbled me. And I suppose the other reason it's not necessarily, I think it is in one of the photos, is in one of the photos I'm wearing a jumper with robots on. That's Claire's jumper. And she put these photos on Facebook, and her mum and her sister immediately messaged her saying, who is that woman? You never let anyone borrow that jumper. Is that your new girlfriend? So they they said, we knew it was serious when she let you borrow that jumper. So I guess that's why I chose it, because it sort of ties quite a lot of things up together. It definitely holds more significance than I think it would have, because in a way that lots of places that we went to together now are much more significant, and revisiting some of those places is much nicer than I would have assumed it is, and revisiting some places is harder, and it kind of, I remember, so I at A-level taught the Thomas Hardy's poetry, and obviously he's more known as a novelist, but he wrote a collection of poems called the 1912 to 1913 poems, where for the year after his wife died, he travelled back to every place they'd been to together. And these poems are completely heartbreaking. Some of them are him thinking that he sees her, some of them are just him kind of desolate, some of them are him recalling happier times. And I would have assumed that would be something I would do, and I haven't, but I've definitely have either ended up going or have chosen to go back to places that we went to together. And so they do become much more significant. So I said, like the park that we got married in Bath is where we've scattered some of Claire's ashes. She was scattered via a fireworks display, which is what she had chosen. I researched crazy options for her, and I said, you can either have a fireworks display or you can be blasted into space, because when she was younger she wanted to be an astronaut. And she said, well, if you blast me into space no one can see it, but if you do the fireworks display everyone will have something fun to look at. So I guess what I think I'm trying to do is, yes, some places are more significant, and kind of find ways to incorporate them into remembering her, if that makes sense. So yeah, and it was really nice to come back, actually. I write to her every night, and I've written to her pretty much every night since 3 days after she died. And I've skipped a few nights where I've been staying at a friend's house or whatever, but I'd say maybe other than 5 nights I've written to her every night. I find writing to her every night really good. It makes me feel more connected to her. I think about that question a lot. Why am I doing this? And also, I think the purpose has shifted over time. So at the start, it was partly, the first thing I ever wrote was, so I'm really kind of blunt, the first thing I ever wrote is, you died 3 days ago. And I think that was the point where I was having always to say it out loud to tell myself that it was true. And those moments are far less often than they used to be. I still have moments now where I have to say in my head, Claire's dead, and kind of do a bit of kind of reeling from it all over again. So I think at the beginning it was a way of forcing myself to process isn't quite the right word, but just kind of putting something on paper to remind myself. And we just talked loads, and we would, if we'd spent a day and we'd hardly seen each other, then we wouldn't be able to fall asleep because we'd be talking. So the act of kind of telling her things before I go to, it's always just before I go to sleep at night, is kind of, I suppose, replicating that part of our relationship. And I think at the start it was, I had nowhere for those things to go, and also I was going through the hardest thing I'd ever have to go through, and the person I most wanted to talk about it wasn't there, so it was kind of, well, I'll just talk to you about it even though you're not here. So I suppose it's because she was my go-to person. And I think now sometimes it's a way of remembering things. Something will have happened in the day that reminds me of something in a memory, and I'll note it down. And recently I wrote to her and I said, I'm not sure why I'm telling you everything, because either I believe that you're with me all the time, which I'm not sure I do, but I don't believe in an afterlife. But if she is with me all the time, she knows anyway, so why am I writing it? So I don't know anymore, but I just find it really comforting. I think it's a good thing to do. It's hard because I don't know where to start really, because she was everything, I suppose. I suppose really I remember at her funeral saying that she was like the advent of colour television, because I'd had a perfectly fine life up to then, but she was kind of the switching on of kind of Technicolor, and the realisation that, I don't know, that life was joyful, I suppose. And she was just adventurous and enthusiastic and genuine and authentic and earnest and cheeky and mischievous and loving and kind, and could speak all these languages and could fly a plane, and she was just an amazing person. She was the kind of person that people are like, really? Yeah. And sometimes me and Claire's sister sometimes say, people probably think we have a really rose-tinted view of Claire, and I'm sure we do, but actually she really was that amazing. So she just kind of, I don't know, we just kind of created a life together that was perfect is too neat a way of describing it. But I think she said we were made for each other. And not long before she died, she said, I always say I don't believe in soulmates, but I do think you're my soulmate. And I think that belief that you find someone who absolutely understands it. I think it's being wholly known by someone is actually what love is about, is the desire to be wholly known. And I think she did that in just a really generous way. And she was amazing. I think strong has too many potential interpretations. She was just incredible. She was strong-willed and purposeful and considered about everything. And I think she also, she was very driven in her career and knowing exactly what she wanted, and she achieved the things she set out to achieve. Obviously before, cancer got in the way, and her kind of pursuit of me was very, just kind of masterfully done, really. And I suppose in terms of how she handled being ill, I think for a long time she wasn't ill for that long, but for the majority of the time that she was ill, I think she took the focus that she would have had towards her career to trying to get better. And, with cancer, you actually can't control it. And if either the treatment works or it doesn't. And so I think she spent a lot of that time thinking, well, what are the things I can control? And it wasn't just about things like trying to stay physically fit, and because she'd been very fit and active. It wasn't just about that, but it was also about kind of being connected to people. So I think she probably, it was partly wanting to use the time when she was ill to be connected to people and to have meaningful conversations and create really positive memories. And then once she knew she was dying, that quickly became a real focus on things she wanted to do to equip us for the future. And she died much quicker than we thought she was going to, and there were things she was going to do. So she wanted to kind of record a bit of Harry Potter that then I could listen to and her brother and sister could listen to, because we're all massive Harry Potter fans. But stuff like the Harry Potter play was published at the end of July, and we had a Harry Potter party, and just stupid stuff like that, that she was just really focused on creating things that now we can all look back on and think she did that for us. So her dad got remarried a month before she died, and she made a really lovely speech, and there's a really nice photo of them at the wedding together, and kind of I think she was really purposeful about knowing that we would need to hold on to things, so she was quite almost strategic about how she spent her time as a result, even though she was really tired a lot of the time. I suppose one of the things I was thinking about on the way here was one of the things that I feel like there's like different elements to grieving for someone, especially when they've died at an age that Claire died at. And one of the things is kind of I'm still grieving the life she hasn't gone on to have. And I think about that a lot, and about, I think one of the reasons I'm functioning better than I would have thought is that I'm conscious of having a life, and that I am alive, and therefore I should try and honour her by having a kind of good and purposeful life. And I think doing things like this is a way of trying to take her with me into that life. I think that's really important, trying to make her part of the future, because we thought we'd have our future together. But that's something I think about quite a lot. I think we talked a bit earlier about I want to help other people who are going through a similar situation, because I think some of it is caring for, but the term carer, I always was a bit like, I'm her wife, not her carer. But just the process of being very close to someone as they die is something that I want people to feel that they can talk. I feel like it's quite a difficult thing to talk about, and people don't necessarily want to talk about it. And some people go through it and never want to revisit, which I totally understand. But I feel fine revisiting it because I learnt so much, and to have learnt all that. And as a teacher, I can't learn lots and not give it to anyone else. It just doesn't feel right. And I think Claire would really respect that. She would think that's a really good thing to do. But I think the other thing is that it's made me less. I think I used to be quite kind of. I don't care as much what people think about me, because ultimately we're all going to die. So I'll just live my life how I think is the right way to live it. I worry less about that kind of thing. So I'm a lot more relaxed about things. I think I'm a lot less. I don't obsess about work in the way that I used to. I realise that, ultimately there's other things that are important in life as well. And I think also I one of the most significant things that's come out of this is that my family and friends have been amazing, and Claire's family have been amazing, and I'm still really close to them. So making time to see them still. And I've got amazing friends who I knew were great people, but now I know that some of them are truly amazing. And so actually, if I am lucky enough to live a long life, I'd like people to look back and think she was a really good friend. And that's much more important to me. I always wanted that, but now that's much more at the centre of what I want to do, rather than just be kind of career obsessed, which I probably was before. So it's definitely changed me in that way.